Now, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker started a war with public sector unions. Late last week, Walker announced that he will propose removing nearly all public employee collective bargaining rights, with the exception of wages, but still with a twist. Any salary increase could be no more than the Consumer Price Index unless voters in the jurisdiction approved a higher raise. Now, as a warning shot, he's also announced that the Wisconsin National Guard has been alerted and is prepared to respond in the case of any problems that could result in a disruption of state services. And Walker claims that this move is a necessary step to plug a $3.6 billion budget hole in the state. But labor activists, many Democrats, see this as a calculated political assault on public sector employees. Even some state Republicans in Wisconsin are upset, saying that the governor is coming across as more of a dictator and less of a leader. So is this tough love, but a very necessary move? Or is this a political war against the working class? Well, joining me to discuss it is Seton Motley, founder and president of Less Government, and Mike Elk, labor journalist and contributing editor for In These Times. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Now, Seton, I'm going to start with you because, I'm curious. Obviously, the governor is painting this as an absolutely necessary step in order to deal with the state's budget woes. But how is restricting the bargaining rights of labor unions really going to fix, billions of dollars in a budget
Well, I have
gap?
a fundamental problem with public sector unions anyway. I mean, FDR thought they were a terrible idea.
You have to answer my question.
Okay, I will. But what I'm saying is they've strip-mined the state budgets all across the country. The main reason these states, Jersey, New York, California, Wisconsin, the ones that continuously vote Democrat, have these horrendous budget deficits is because they're on the hook for tens and hundreds of billions of dollars to public sector union employees. And so they have to do something to address this overwhelming upside-down nature of the unions thugging their way through the budget process and collecting all these ridiculous benefits well outside what 95% of the private sector who's paying for it gets in their jobs.
Now, are they really collecting these absolutely ridiculous, crazy benefits that are so much better than anyone who doesn't work for the government enjoys in this country?
Absolutely not. The average pension of a public employee is $19,000, and they don't receive any Social Security on top of that. And there have been studies that have shown time and time again that people that work in the public sector make about 4 to 10% less than what their counterparts do in the private sector. Now, this argument about pension shortfalls, there was a study that came out today by Dean Baker, the Center for Economic and Policy Research, which showed that had it not been for the housing crash, the pensions would have been up to where they were. So the problem of this was the housing crash, and it's Wall Street. And let's not get our eyes off of who the real culprits are this.
That's a frickin' joke. You're telling me that all the states were balanced budgets until 2008? That's absurd. Second of all, your assertion on these numbers is totally made up. You're making
you want to disagree with the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
Right-wing think tank numbers?
No, I have some actual factual numbers.
From the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Would you like to let me speak?
Yeah.
Or you want to cite your government-funded pro-union statistics? The unions get 20 to 30% more per job on average than the private sector does. That's happening right now, and it's been going on for decades. Second of all, their benefits are 3 to 4 times as good as private sector. So don't tell me these made-up numbers that they get $19,000 a year in pensions. $19,000 a year doesn't end up to a $22 billion shortfall as they have in places like New Jersey and Wisconsin and California. All
right, so clearly there's a little bit of debate as to whose numbers you would like to believe. There are different statistics out there.
I don't think there's much debate among credible economists.
Yeah.
Which is why you're out of this conversation.
I want to ask you, though, do you think that this move by Scott Walker in Wisconsin is clearly a politically motivated move?
No, I think it's absolutely awful.
It's not just him, right? There are other states out there, Ohio, Indiana, Idaho, Tennessee, that all have this type of legislation in the works to go after public sector unions. A lot of people are saying that this is an attack happening right now.
Andrew Cuomo in New York's doing the same thing. That evil Democrat.
Well, I think it's absolutely awful. On the day that the Egyptian military decided to help the Egyptian people overthrow the dictatorship, we see the military in this country being used to threaten the collective bargaining rights, the fundamental rights of Americans, enshrined in international law and the Constitution. We see them being threatened.
Where is it in the Constitution?
The First Amendment, freedom to associate. We see these being threatened by a thug. I mean, the gentleman to my left talks about thuggery. I think calling out the National Guard is true thuggery.
Yeah, because unions are never known for being thugs.
Let's get something right here today. I was on the phone earlier today with Stu Acop over the Utility Workers of America, who's gotten a death threat after appearing on Fox News. So let's get something straight about which side is threatening which side and which side is shooting who in this battle.
Boy, the unions have never been thugs. That's obviously
shouldn't
true.
It be, your fundamental right to associate, to gather, to at least have a negotiating power?
This gentleman has something.
Can I say something here before you? Would you stop? Would you just be quiet for a second? Public sector unions were such a bad idea that FDR never did them. They were created out of an executive order by JFK. They're a terrible idea because the people who pay the tab aren't in the negotiating room. You've got the public sector unions that want to get paid. You have the government people that want to get elected and want to get union contributions for their campaigns in the room negotiating. The person who's paying the tab is the taxpayer. They're not in the room and they're getting screwed.
What about the taxpayers that do work for, the public sector?
40% of the NEA votes for Republicans, and their money gets taken and spent on Democrat campaigns over and over and over and over again. And they can't opt out.
Do you think that this kind of move,
that's a lie. Actually, Beck versus the Communication Workers of America allows union members that don't want their money going to political contributions to opt out.
It's a slush fund. It goes into A and not B. It's like saying you're funding Hamas, but you're only supporting the schools.
Are you equating labor unions with Hamas?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, but are labor unions the fundamental problem that needs to go right now? You don't think that perhaps, if you go after the worker, couldn't it cause even more social, political, economic unrest? How is it not the worker? These are public sector employees. They're employees. They're workers.
But they're also strip mining budgets of states across the nation. The reason we're going up, they're going under, is because of all the obligations to the unions. And again, the taxpayer wasn't in the room. You had elected officials that wanted to get reelected, so they sold out to these public sector unions for salaries and benefits way beyond any reasonable, rational estimation. And as a result, all these governments are going under, unless there's a taxpayer representative in the room, there should not be public sector unions.
All right, Mike, I'm going to let you finish it off then, and then we have to wrap it up. So what do you think, though? I'm serious here. Do you think that something like this is only going to cause more unrest, that people are, socially, politically, economically just going to get themselves in more of a tizzy?
Let's remember what happened the last time the National Guard was called out during a strike, the 1968 Memphis sanitation workers strike. And that strike, Martin Luther King was killed. When you start threatening National Guard throughout labor's history... Will you let me finish my sentence? When you start threatening violence in any form...
Who's threatening violence?
Will you let me finish my sentence,
Stop lying.
All right.
No,
I'm talking about the National Guard. This is some show of force, right? Whether they use violence
whenever there's any type of show of force, what has always happened throughout American labor history, when the National Guard was called out in the 30s, they would come out, it would be, the big show of force, and then vigilantes would come out and they would kill people. Because it's a tactical endorsement of force against union members. And what you're going to see is a union leader wind up with a bullet in the head the way Gabby Gifford did.
Well, I certainly hope not, but we'll see how far this plan goes in Wisconsin and other states. But, gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.